This is the Real Estate Connect podcast, bringing you knowledge on all things real estate, from buying to selling to investing. No topic will be left untouched. If you're a first-time home buyer, just have an interest in real estate, or a question that needs to be answered, you're guaranteed to find it in one of our episodes. Licensed in both Georgia and Illinois, a previous team leader for Keller Williams Realty, and currently the owner of Maison Fleur Realty Group, with locations in Chicago and Atlanta. Here's your host, the Real Estate Connect herself, Sharena Flowers.
What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the Real Estate Connect podcast. It's your realtor, Sharena Flowers, and I'd just like to say thank you for joining us today. Today's broadcast is brought to you by Maison Fleur Realty Group, serving home buyers and sellers in the metro Atlanta area. If you are a first-time home buyer, we'd love to represent you in your home purchase. You can search properties on our website at atlantahomebuyer.co or give us a call at 404-692-1031 to schedule your home buyer consultation today. Today's episode is all about preparation. We are answering the most pressing question of first-time home buyers, which is, where do I start? So let's jump right into it. For many, the first person they call when they decide to purchase a home or prepare to purchase a home is a real estate agent. And the best way to find an agent you can trust is by referral. Now, of course, you can also research agents online by taking a look at their reviews on websites like Zillow or Trulia, or by following their blogs and social media to see if they might be a good fit. And while there is nothing wrong with contacting an agent first, don't be surprised or alarmed if the first question they ask is either, have you spoken with a lender, or are you already pre-approved? I promise you, they're not trying to blow you off. There's definitely a method to our madness, and our inquiry is only because we really do have your best interests at heart. The first person you should really call once you've made that decision to buy is a loan officer. The loan officer is going to discuss your budget, your income, your savings, and your credit to determine if you have some work to do or if you should proceed with the pre-approval process. If you contact an agent first, they may go over some of these items as well as prepare you for the call with the lender. It's at your discretion to discuss finances with your agent, but know that you don't have to go in depth if you don't feel comfortable with letting a real estate agent know everything about your finances. Now, to prepare yourself for the phone call with the lender, you will want to check your credit scores first. You can use sites like creditchecktotal.com or creditkarma.com. The scores that you see may or may not be the scores that the loan officer sees when they pull your credit for the application, but these scores will give you an idea of where you stand credit-wise. For example, the score you get from Credit Karma is called a Vantage score. It gives you an idea of your credit situation, but it's not the score that the lender will use for your mortgage application. Sites like Credit Check Total, however, will give you your FICO score. And the FICO score is a score that the lenders use. But also keep in mind that when a lender pulls your report, it's mortgage specific. So in some cases, you as a consumer won't see the exact same score or report that the lender does. Now, in terms of credit scores, there are some lenders that will take a credit score as low as a 500, but most require a 620 for pre-approval. In those cases where lenders will take a lower credit score, be aware that this also comes along with higher interest rates, higher reserve requirements, meaning the money that you have in the bank, and higher closing costs. So this means that you must have much more cash on hand than you would with a typical purchase transaction. Additionally, keep in mind that the financials we discussed during the podcast will not apply to scores less than 620. So what we're talking about today are cases where you have at least a 620 credit score. So the loan officer is going to pull what's called a tri-merge credit report. This is a combination of all three credit reports: TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And they're going to pull the credit reports with their corresponding FICO scores. The middle score is the score that will be used for your application. So, for example, let's say you have scores of 620, 630, and a 618. The 620 score is your middle score. So that's the score that will be used for your loan application. In this case, you would be good to go in terms of credit. Now, next up for consideration is your savings. How much money do you have in the bank? While there are down payment assistance programs available, you're still going to have to contribute money to the deal. So even though you're getting down payment assistance, that doesn't mean that you don't have to contribute anything. In addition to your down payment, you have prepaid expenses and closing costs. Your prepaids are going to be those costs that you must pay upfront when the deal begins. Your first expense is going to be the earnest money deposit. This is a deposit made to a seller, showing the buyer's good faith in a transaction. The deposit is usually held by the listing brokerage in an escrow account until closing. The earnest money deposit shows the seller that a buyer is serious about purchasing a property, and it can be any amount the parties agree upon. Most agents are going to recommend buyers put up about $1,000 as a fair amount for the deposit. Now, other prepaids can include the home inspection and the appraisal fee, which will run you about $500 each, give or take. So the cost of those can be less than $500, but they shouldn't exceed $500. So for the purpose of estimating our costs, we're going to use $500 for both. So in total, you'll begin the transaction spending at least $2,000 out of pocket before getting to the closing table. Now, your closing costs are going to include fees for the attorney, transfer stamps to transfer the title of the property, and your loan origination fees. This amount is going to depend mostly on the price of the house and whether or not the seller makes any concessions. And a seller concession is what we call a closing cost credit. A lot of times, your buyer's agent will ask the seller for closing cost credit. But keep in mind that we are in a seller's market. This market is competitive. So there are going to be a lot of sellers that will not contribute to your closing costs. So you have to keep that in consideration. Now, since there's no way to know just how much money you're going to need to have in the bank, I recommend that my clients save at least $5,000 to $7,000 per $100,000 in purchase price that they intend to spend. So if you're considering and can afford a $200,000 home, you will want to save at least $10,000, but closer to $14,000 to be safe and make sure you can afford this purchase. Now, that amount that you're saving does not take into consideration any down payment assistance that you receive. This means that you can afford to purchase the home in the event that the down payment assistance falls through, or in the event that because of your income, you don't qualify for down payment assistance. So I like to always tell my clients, do not depend solely on down payment assistance, because there are instances where the money actually runs out, and you don't want to be in the middle of a transaction and the money for the down payment assistance runs out before you actually close. So you want to be able to have that money and use it if you need to. And then if you already have your savings, you keep yourself liquid for once you move into your house. Okay? So moving on to the next item. In addition to making sure your credit is up to par and you have money saved in the bank, you also want to make sure your debt to income ratio is not more than 43%. Your debt to income ratio, which is also called your DTI, is calculated by dividing your total recurring monthly debt by your gross monthly income, and it's expressed as a percentage. Your credit card payments, loan payments, your car note, etc., all of those things combined cannot exceed 43% of your income. Utilities and miscellaneous monthly expenses are not included in this number. The lender is going to look at those items that appear on your credit report as revolving accounts. Okay? So your credit card payments, keep in mind, they may be $25. So they're not looking at your total balances. They're looking at the minimum payment, not necessarily the payments that you're making. If you're making more than a minimum, which you should be, but they're looking at the minimum payment for each of those items. Now, if you exceed that 43%, you're going to want to pay some of your balances down or get rid of a bill or two to lower your ratio. So if once you add up all of those items and you divide it by your income and you exceed 43%, you want to look at those bills to see which monthly payments you can get rid of prior to applying for your mortgage loan, okay? So that you can reduce your debt to income ratio. All right, almost done. So the last thing you want to prepare before you take that first step is gathering your documents for the lender. So if you checked off everything on the list that we've just covered and you feel like you're good to go and you're ready to contact the lender and get pre-approved for your mortgage loan, I want you to go ahead and get your documents ready so that you can send them all to the loan officer and you can get your pre-approval letter back within 24 to 48 hours, because that's all it's going to take. So the loan officer is going to ask for 30 days of pay stubs. So you want to have already been on your job for a month. If you get paid every 2 weeks, they're going to need your last 2 check stubs. You're also going to need a copy of your last 2 years of W-2s. So if you're not good at keeping up with paperwork, you want to request those from your jobs or your last 2 jobs. You're going to need 60 days of bank statements. If you bank online, it's as easy as logging into your account and downloading the last 2 months. If you don't bank online, I hope you save your bank statements. Otherwise, you're going to have to call customer service and request them. You're also going to need a copy of your last 2 years' tax returns. So if it's July and you have not filed your 2016 return, you're going to have to do that in order to purchase this house. But if you have filed already, you need a copy of those last 2 tax returns. They need to be signed with your signature already. And in addition to that, once you actually apply for the loan, the lender is going to have you sign a request for transcripts. So make sure that the information you are giving them is correct, because they are going to compare the tax returns that you provided to what the IRS has on file. So keep in mind, those last 2 tax returns have to match what you actually filed with the IRS. Okay? You're also going to need to send over a copy of your photo ID to make sure that it's you. They're going to need all of these items to enter your information into the system to process your pre-approval. It runs through the computer. It's automatic. A lender cannot pre-approve you manually. So you need to have all of that paperwork in order to generate your pre-approval letter through the system. The faster you get all of this information to your lender, the faster you can get your pre-approval letter and move on to phase 2. So let's recap what we talked about today. Number 1, you need at least a 620 credit score. There are some lenders that take as low as a 500, but keep in mind, with a 500 credit score, you're going to need to have much more money in the bank because it's going to cost you more to close on that mortgage. In addition to the 620 credit score, you want to save at least $5,000 to $7,000 per $100,000 in purchase price. So if you're looking at a $100,000 house, I say save between $5,000 to $7,000. If you're looking at a $200,000 house, you're going to double that amount. Save between $10,000 to $14,000. Okay, have that money sitting in the bank for at least 60 days because the lender is going to ask you for 60 days of bank statements. Last but not least, your debt to income ratio should not exceed 43%. So when you add up all of those minimum payments from your credit report, they should not exceed 43% of your income. In the event that they do, figure out which bills you can pay off and which payments you can get rid of to bring your DTI within the correct range. Lastly, the documents you need to submit to the lender to get your pre-approval letter before you can go home shopping. 30 days of pay stubs, the last 2 years of W-2s, 60 days of bank statements, your last 2 years tax returns, and a copy of your photo ID. If you follow all of these steps, you are ready to start the process of purchasing your first home. For next week's episode, we will be interviewing our guest, Quanyata Benson of Altera Home Loans. We will be asking her everything you need to know about the loan products she offers, credit, processing of the loan, and more. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast for notification as soon as it's released. Once again, thanks for listening in to the show.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Real Estate Connect podcast. Don't keep us a secret. Tell a friend to tell a friend and step your real estate game up.